April 2002. I'm still picture framing, still living in North Ridgeville, Ohio, right next to the police station, and still reading a lot of books, a couple of which I left over there. So I'm going to have to lean over and grab them because I do have a couple covers to show. But the first book I read in April of 2002, I don't have it. There's no cover to show, but it was Kill Me Tender by Daniel Klein. This is an Elvis Presley mystery. Elvis has returned from his tour of duty in Germany in the war, and he's just not getting back into rock and roll. He's just not feeling it. But the presidents of his fan clubs are being murdered, and so he decides, since he's not feeling the music, maybe he can figure out who is killing these young women. He's going to do that with a doctor from the black part of town, I believe is how it was described in the description. And the doctor's nurse and an Elvis impersonator. And it's a light-hearted, it's a murder mystery, so as lighthearted as that can get. Featuring Elvis Presley. It's a lot of fun. There's going to be more of these. Not this video, but in later videos. Next up, one that I forgot to read the back of before I did this video. Normally, if I have these, I read the back to remind myself what it's about. But this is Amazonia by James Rollins, one of my favorites of his. And without looking at the back, basically a group of people are brought together to go down into the Amazon to search for a lost group of people, except one person came back from that group, and when they first went on their expedition, they were missing an arm, and when they made it back, the only survivor, they had both arms. So something weird's going on. All right, let's read the back and see if I'm even close. The Rand scientific expedition entered the lush wilderness of the Amazon and never returned. Years later, one of its members has stumbled out of the world's most inhospitable rainforest. A former Special Forces soldier, scarred, mutilated, terrified, and mere hours from death, who went in with one arm missing and came out with both intact. Boom, how's that? Unable to comprehend this inexplicable event, the government sends Nathan Rand into this impenetrable secret world of undreamed of perils to follow the trail of his vanished father toward mysteries that must be solved at any cost. But the nightmare that is awaiting Nate and his team of scientists and seasoned U.S. Rangers dwarfs any danger they anticipated. An ancient, unspoken terror, a power beyond human imagining that can forever alter the world beyond the dark, lethal confines of Amazonia. This is a newer edition. I kind of wish I had the original edition because it had a die-cut cover. I always like that. That's always fun. So yeah, great James Rollin adventure. And I'm going to spoil one little thing that makes this one of the little things that adds to my love of this book. 3 words: killer piranha frogs. Need I say more? Killer piranha frogs should be the name of my band, if I had a band. Anyway, that's Amazonia, James Rollins. Love that book. Next up, Edge of Danger by Jack Higgins. And this is, excuse me, let's take a look. This is a book that features Sean Dillon, who's in many, many Jack Higgins books, ex-IRA, I believe, and Blake Johnson, who works for The Basement, which is a covert Washington organization. And there is this, I forget how they put it in the description, but it's we'll just say a Middle Eastern dynasty that blames the President of the United States for some things. And so they're trying to kill him. And Blake Johnson and Sean Dillon are trying to, well, figure out, first they have to figure out who's trying to kill the president and put a stop to it. It's good old fashioned Jack Higgins thriller stuff with Sean Dillon, a character that I love. Then we have the other book that I have here to show you. This is Justice League of America, Batman, the Stone King by Alan Grant. Well, an Alex Ross cover. This is the first in a series. All the books have Alex Ross covers, and they all look similar to this, but without Batman's fat head there. But in this book, this mysterious pyramid has appeared in Gotham City, and it incapacitates the Justice League, all except for Batman. And so Batman has to figure out what's going on, how he can save the other members of the Justice League. Eventually, I think all these books are going to tie together. It's been a while since I read them, so I don't recall exactly what goes on. But it's a decent Batman book, and I like books like this that have multiple characters, even though a lot of them are out for the count in this. You know, Batman's got to figure out how to save them. But it's a decent start to a decent little series that focuses on. I'm looking at the books, and I can see that there's a Superman, a Green Lantern, I believe it's Wonder Woman, and a Flash, and then one that's Justice League. So everybody kind of gets their own spotlight, and then there's one where they're all working together. But Justice League of America, Batman, the Stone King by Alan Grant. There you go. That's it. That's all I have to show you. No more covers. I followed that up with Vor, V-O-R, Vor, Island of Power by Dean Wesley Smith. It's part of the Vor, the Maelstrom series. And, excuse me, the Earth has been transported somehow to this faraway place called the Maelstrom, where there's just thousands of alien worlds. And in this particular book, I think it's off the coast of Portland, this mysterious island, alien island, appears, or this island with an alien city appears off the coast of Portland. And we humans are hoping that they can find a way to get the Earth back to where it belongs. But of course, there's other aliens, other terrifying creatures who also want the power of this alien city. So, humans versus horrifying creatures in this weird sci-fi horror place. This is what, the third one of these that I've read, so they can't be too bad if I kept reading the series. I'll just put it that way. Next up, Black Oak Hunting Ground by Charles Grant. This is part of a series, very X-Files-like. Black Oak is a security firm that deals in the weird. And in this particular book, where are my notes? The head of Black Oak, Ethan Proctor, decides to take a vacation in Atlantic City. But there's some killings going on, and it might be a vampire. Charles Grant writes some very atmospheric horror, in my opinion. I have a ton of his books. I have one of these Black Oak books, I think, that I found at Half Price Books. A quick look around. I couldn't find it. It's on a pile somewhere, but I don't think it's this one. Black Oak Hunting Ground, Charles Grant. Then we have Star Wars X-Wing, Isard's Revenge by Michael A. Stackpole. This is about the Rogue Squadron of X-Wings led by Wedge Antilles. They're sort of the covert branch of the rebellion or the New Republic, depending on when these are taking place. I believe it's building the New Republic. Anyway, so they've dealt with this woman, Isan. I don't know how you say her name. Isard. And so Wedge and the X-Wing guys go out on a mission. Some of the X-Wing guys are captured. They're in a prison camp, and Wedge wants to rescue them, and Isard shows up and says, hey, I'll help you rescue your guys if you help me deal with some shit that I've got going down. So Wedge has to decide, he needs the help, but he's going to be making a deal with the devil. I say it every time. I like these X Wing books because most of the characters are not main characters, so you never know what's going to happen with them. Anybody could die at any time. Um, and plus, I love X Wings and covert stuff. So, really, really good series within the Star Wars universe. Excuse me. Next, we have Irrational Fears by William Browning Spencer, author of Resume with Monsters. Really great book. But in this book, Irrational Fears, Jake Lowry, he's an alcoholic, and he falls in love with this woman who's also an alcoholic. They've met at their meetings, but she ends up kidnapped by this extreme recovery group, and Jake Lowry has to try to rescue her in this sort of monster filled place where she's being kept. Resume with Monsters, my favorite by William Browning Spencer. I think it's really, really good. He has a really interesting way of taking everyday sorts of things, not that kidnapping is necessarily an everyday sort of thing, but adding this sort of Lovecraftian undertone to things. Is a very, very interesting writer. Irrational Fears, William Browning Spencer. Then a book I wish I had, but I don't at the moment. The 10th Justice by Brad Meltzer. I started reading Brad Meltzer because he was writing comic books, another author that I found through his comic book work. I would say most people who know the name would know him from, he had a show about conspiracies and things on, I don't know if it was on the History Channel, but when the Da Vinci Code blew up, Brad Meltzer started writing some books that were very similar to the Da Vinci Code and secret history type of stuff, conspiracy type of stuff. And then he had a TV show. But this is his first novel, The 10th Justice. And so the main character is Ben Addison. He works for the Supreme Court. I believe he's a clerk, some such, maybe a personal assistant, whatever, in a position that's considered the 10th Justice because he's privy to everything. Well, he unfortunately shares information with someone that he shouldn't, and all of a sudden there's murder and blackmail going on. And so Ben Addison gathers up his a coworker and the roommates to try and put a stop to what could turn out to be a terrible, terrible thing. So very much in the vein of John Grisham, excuse me. Brad Meltzer was a lawyer, I believe, writing these legal political thrillers. I like his writing more than I like John Grisham. I've read John Grisham. Most of it was fine, but if I had to choose, I would read Brad Meltzer over John Grisham. And I believe this is the book where all of the Supreme Court justices are named after characters in the comic book The Watchmen. But it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. And, went on. You're going to see more Brad Meltzer coming up eventually. Not in this video. Because I really dug it. I'm a fan. And I like his comic book stuff too. All right. Then we have Tower of Babel. Or Babel? Never sure how to pronounce it. By John H. Steele. This is a World of Darkness book. Mage the Ascension, based on the role-playing game of magic in the real world type of thing. And I could not find any information about this book. And I don't remember anything about it. Mage, not my favorite of the World of Darkness settings. I prefer the werewolf stuff and the vampire stuff and the hunter stuff. But if you're into magic in the real world, I guess, or World of Darkness in general. Why not try out Tower of Babel? Then we have It's Been a Good Life by Isaac Asimov, edited by Janet Jepson Asimov. And so Asimov wrote 3 autobiographies. This is all 3 together in one volume. And it also includes letters that he wrote to his wife, Janet Jepson Asimov. I'm a huge fan of Asimov's fiction. Some of his nonfiction I've read. And reading his autobiography, just fantastic. He has his style is so clean. His style of writing, his nonfiction, he can write about incredibly heady subjects, but his writing just makes it so easy to read about. And the same with his science fiction, some really wild concepts, and yet his clean, precise prose makes it easy to digest. And the same is true, I think, with this autobiography. It's just like sitting around a fire listening to him tell stories about his life. Fantastic book. Then we have Midnight Runner by Jack Higgins, and this is a follow-up to Edge of Danger. And so in this one, so little spoilers for Edge of Danger. What's his name? Blake Johnson and Sean Dillon. They kill the guys that are trying to kill the president. So now in this one, Midnight Runner, the sister, Kate Rashid, the sister of the 2 guys they killed, wants revenge for them killing her brothers. Excuse me. So now again, Sean Dillon, Blake Johnson, protecting the president, trying to stop this person that's trying to kill them all. And I remember when I read this, I really thought about the cycle of violence. So these 2 guys decide they want to kill the president. And in this quest of murder, they end up getting killed. And now their sister, instead of saying, not they got what they deserved, but it was an almost inevitable end. She blames, not, hey, my brothers were doing something wild, of course they got killed. She's like, well, now I blame you for killing my brothers. I'm going to try to kill you. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a 3rd book where someone now wants to kill them because Kate died. I don't remember if Kate dies in this book, but you see what I'm saying. I just thought it was just that circle of violence. We got to put a stop to it. But Midnight Runner, Jack Higgins, another really fun political thriller. More thriller than political, but it's got the president and such, so little politics in there. All right, now the last 3 books, all by Peter David. First, we have Star Trek New Frontier, The Quiet Place. So, New Frontier, it's about the USS Excalibur, the Captain Mackenzie Calhoun and his crew. One of his crew is Saquon, who's been looking for his missing sister. So, there's this mysterious young woman by the name of Raella that might be Saquon's missing sister. But some people think she might know the location of this place called the Quiet Place, a place of power. So you've got this group called the Redeemers. You've got this other very vicious group called the Dogs of War that want her to divulge. They want to capture her, find out where the Quiet Place is. Saquon just wants to find out if she's his sister. So you have all these different groups clashing over this woman. And that's basically the setup. It's all in a Star Trek universe with the wonderful characters that Peter David has written into this story. And then the penultimate book for April of 2002, Star Trek New Frontier, Dark Allies by Peter David. And in this one, there's this planet killing thing called the Black Mass. It can devour suns, destroy planets, and it's headed towards the Redeemer's home planet. Remember, I just mentioned them in the previous book. And so the Redeemers reach out to Mackenzie Calhoun and the Excalibur for help in stopping the Black Mass. Mackenzie, of course, these are his enemies, but you can't say that every single living person on the planet is an enemy. There are innocent people there. This sounds rather timely. Anyway, so of course, Mackenzie and the Excalibur are going to help their dark allies, get it, fight off the Black Mass. Again, more great Peter David Star Trek characters, action, etc. And finally, the last book that I read in April of 2002 was Star Trek New Frontier Excalibur Requiem by Peter David. Now, in this one, I guess spoilers for some of the earlier stuff, although it's right there in the description. The Excalibur has been destroyed. Mackenzie Calhoun is dead, presumably. Spoilers, he's going to come back eventually. So in this story, basically, the crew of the Excalibur has gone off on sent to different assignments. Shelby, who was next in command after Mackenzie Calhoun, is going to get her own. I think she becomes captain of her own ship. Some of the other characters get, they just get assigned to different places, and so we're sort of following them. And I believe this is sort of a trilogy within the series of New Frontier. It's the Excalibur trilogy. But we're going to see where the different characters go, how they behave when they're not in their core group from the Excalibur, how they're going to deal with new people, new situations. Again, it's Peter David. It's well written, and it's very interesting. And it was the last book that I read in April of 2002. Again, did not think of a question ahead of time because I never do. So, simple question. Are you a fan of legal thrillers? The John Grisham kind of legal thriller. I am, if it's well written. It's not at the top of my list of things to read. I read some John Grisham back in the day, his first 4 or 5 or 6 novels, and enjoyed most of them. And again, Brad Meltzer, and I've enjoyed everything that I've read by him so far. But I kind of fell out of reading his stuff when he started doing what felt to me like just Da Vinci Code stuff. Let's follow this trail of mysterious clues. I didn't need that over and over again. He did it, and then it felt like James Rollins did it, another guy that was on this list. So I stopped reading James Rollins when he came up with this. Again, this group that follows these mysterious clues. But as far as the legal thriller part goes, the early Brad Meltzer stuff, I really enjoy it. It's a matter of how it's written, how the characters are. Grisham, a fine writer. I just felt, I don't know, maybe because Meltzer's younger and he has got the comic book connection, and there's a lot of comic book Easter eggs in his stuff. I really like his stuff a little more. I haven't read any sort of legal thrillers in a long time, I don't think. Trying to remember the last one that I read, and I can't. Nothing's popping up. But I wouldn't mind rereading some of the Brad Meltzer stuff. I enjoyed it that much. I'm trying to work rereading things a little more into reading all the new stuff that I'm reading, because there's so much good old stuff that I want to revisit. But the question was, legal thrillers, are you a fan? If you are, what are your favorites? If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And if you're on Blue Sky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I have for you this week, so until next week, read more books.